All right, hello, my name is Jon Witt and welcome to today's class. Today's class is based in handstand prep. So I'll be giving you techniques of how to build up a foundation in terms of learning a handstand. So if you've never done it before, it's attainable for anyone really. It's just a matter of making the right kind of preparatory steps in preparing the hands, the shoulders, and creating a good body line in terms of awareness. And it may take a long time, but the good thing about the process of it all is it'll help you be a better practitioner. It'll help, I find it's a very good way to help rehabilitate many areas of the body. So if you're struggling in your hands or your shoulders, and even in your back, a handstand can really help with that. So you don't need a lot of equipment. I will be using a wall at some point to get you up and to be upside down. And there's ways that'll help make it more on the basic level. And then as you get more and more confident or more familiar on your hands, then we can, you can be a little bit more proactive in getting up into like a handstand in the middle of the room, which again isn't really that far off for anyone. If you're strong enough or you've been on your hands enough, it's really not that. In my opinion, it's difficult to learn the balance, but it's really kind of taking that step forward as far as wanting to do it. If you want to do it, you'll most likely get it. Okay, so I'm going to be just up in a neutral stance, and my feet are just, about the width of my shoulders. My hands are behind me and my thumbs are locked, and I'm just moving my tailbone down, right? So my hands are a great reference in terms of getting my pelvis to be underneath me. And that's a big part of it. Whether you're in plank pose or handstand, that's how you want to be anchoring through the tail. And then just let that relax and kind of stick your butt out, and then bring the tailbone down again. And then in bringing it down, you can lift the heels off the floor. And then as you're up on the toes, just look over your left shoulder. Look center, look over your right. Look center, look up if you can. And the more you move your head in these positions, the more difficult it is to balance. I'm doing it for that reason, and that it'll help you when you're upside down. So just take a couple deep breaths, lift, push through the big toe mound or the big toe to keep yourself up, and then lower the heels and take the arms out and do a T position. My thumbs are up. I'm going to be rotating my arms down in space. So an internal rotation, and then I'm going to rotate the thumbs back into an external rotation. I'm going to rotate it forward and down, and then rotating it back. Just a basic warm-up for your shoulders. Rotating in, deep rotation forward, and then rotating back, and then getting more of a rotation and an external rotation. So take the arms into a cactus position and retract the shoulders. So feel the difference. And then you can kind of let that relax and take the arms up overhead. So I'm lifting my arms. I'm trying to get my shoulders up towards my ears. Not that you have to be in this type of line in terms of your handstand, but it helps. This is scapula elevation. And when you're first learning how to balance, I find this is one of the more important things that you should be trying to do is to push really hard through the hands and elevate the scapula, and that'll add more stability. I'm going to take the arms back into a cactus position, and then taking the arms up overhead. So these basic things that I'm just starting out with, they're obviously really basic, but they're really helpful in preparing you to get into better positioning. It's all body line. The better the line is, the easier it is, right? It's actually doesn't require as much strength the better the line is. So I'm going to take the arms back to cactus, and I'm going to take the arms back down. So I'm just going to be having the front of my foot into the floor, and I'm just up on the heel. So if you had a knee issue, you could just be here. You could be lowering the heel and elevating the heel. But if you don't have any problems in your leg, I'm going to be circling my leg in space. So on top of preparing the body for this particular class, is I use lower body mobility work because I think it's a really big part in just wellness, but it also helps with increasing the strength of the lower body, so that helps you to kick up. So now I'm circling in and I'm trying to get, a full rotation in my leg so that I'm manipulating more and more of my feet, so that when I do crouching or squatting, it's just that much easier to do. So I'm going to bring my right heel up off the floor. So again, I could just be lifting the heel and lowering the heel. Super basic. If you wanted to do calf raises, this is really the same thing, but this is more of a more basic version. So the heel is up when I'm moving the leg out. I'm circling it out. You could certainly start in. Just take note of which direction you're moving in. Sometimes people always move in the same direction. It's good to move in both of an internal circle and an external circle. So I'm just kind of trying to get the bones to move more, because I'm going to be moving in a wider range. But this is the beginning of it. If this is difficult, it's that much more difficult to crouch. It's that much more difficult to squat, right? There's a much bigger range to that. But my feet are going to be a little bit wider than my shoulders. And just be careful with how much range you're going to be doing this. I'm going to be bringing my knees together. So if you've never done this before, make it really small. And then as it gets easier, then you can increase the range. But I'm bringing my knees in, and they may eventually touch. And there's other things we could do from this, but I'm going to push my legs apart and then getting my knees to kind of fall in, which is completely out of alignment. But your knees, if you do any kind of sport, will do this. It's preparing the legs so that you can do more, again, eclectic things with your lower body, with your upper body. So I'm just bringing them up, bringing them back in. If it hurts, obviously you're going too far into the range, taking it back up. And then last time I'm going to bring it back in and then bringing it up. So I'm going to do a bit of a twisted squat. So what I'm doing is I'm turning my left foot in, then I'm turning my right foot in. So you want to be able to rotate the thigh in and rotate it out. And this will help with different variations of squats. So if you're on a sticky mat, you may want to be on more of a slippery surface. Like I'm on my hardwood floors now, so it's a little bit easier for me to turn. So I'm going to turn my left foot in, and I'm sitting down, possibly sitting on the heel. Spreading out the toes, pressing through the feet. I'm going to turn through my right foot, and then I'm going to sit back on my right heel. Left foot can turn out a little bit, just as if, like when you're squatting, feet can turn out when we squat. You can lift it up. I'm going to turn my left foot in, rotating the thigh in, and then sitting back on the heel. And you might not be sitting, it might be something like this. Obviously this is a good starting point. I'm going to rotate the right thigh in, and then sitting back on the heel. Knee could be touching the floor, doesn't have to. Pressing through the back foot and then bringing myself up to standing. So this will help with getting into lower positions in terms of squatting. So we're gonna come down onto the hands, prepare the shoulders. And we'll do more of really conditioning, more of kicking today, which I think is a great thing if in terms of strengthening the backs of the legs. So come down on the hands, and then when you're on the hands, just pressure the hands and protract the shoulders. Really get really wide through your shoulders, get wide through your back. Then let the chest drop down. Then press through the hands, widen the shoulders, widen the scapula. Then let the chest kind of come down. And then widen the shoulders, widen out through the back. So I'm going to sit back up on my toes again, or sitting on my heels. And I'm just going to move the weight around. I may bring more weight into one foot, or I may avoid the pressure in one foot because I might not be able to take that type of pressure just yet. So I'm going to have the hands down, and I'm just moving the weight around now just to adjust the hands, the wrists. And then I'm going to turn the hands in, and I'm going to move the weight back and forward just to adjust the wrists and the forearms. And then what I'm going to do is turn the hands back towards the knees, and as the hands are turned back, right? This is more what it's like in being in a handstand. So this is, what I would do more of in terms of stretching out the wrist is what is actually more difficult for you. Not painful, but what's more challenging for you is probably going to be the best stretch in terms of preparing the hands, the wrists. And it varies for people, right? So my hands are down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press through the tops of my feet. I'm going to come up a few times, probably about 5 times, so it assimilates like a handstand. I think plank is a great thing, but just to give you more variety and to give you just a different practice, it'll help with getting you into, again, your handstand. So my hands are down, hands are turned out, and this is to protect the hands, the wrists. So they're turned out slightly. So what you're trying to aim forward are the index fingers, not so much the middle finger. If my middle finger is forward, my hands are actually turned in slightly. So you want to point the index fingers forward. So my hands are down, and protract the shoulders and push through the feet, and you're going to lift the hips up. And you're coming forward, right? And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to press forward, purposely bringing more weight into the hands, and then coming down, pressing up with the hips. It's very good for the feet as well. Then I'm bringing myself down, coming up, press really hard through the hands, coming down, and maybe you're already done. Maybe you're not doing more, but I'm going to do one more. So press through the hands, lift the hips up, draw the abdomen in, bring it in, and then come back down on the knees. Make it longer and come up into plank, which should be a lot easier to do. You do something stronger in terms of practice, the easier, more fundamental positions becomes that much easier to do. So take it up into a down dog, and in a down dog you could pedal the legs out. Right? I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog. So try to lift through your upper back. Lift, it's very unique for everyone, but try to lift through an area of your back that just doesn't move as well. And then go back up into a down dog. Take it back. I'm going to come forward into plank and press through the hands, protract through the shoulders, and then when we come down, shoulders are retracting back, and then you're all the way down and come up onto your elbows, your forearms, and this is what I'm talking about is finding where to move through the spine. For some people, they really do need more extension in their lower back, and for others, like myself, I need more of an extension through my upper back. So I could have my arms more forward, I could have them wider. Higher is nice. I'm going to go into a higher position, but maybe low is better for you today. So come down and curl up into a low cobra. And I'm purposely trying to keep my hips down so that there's more leverage in my spine in the higher facets. I'm going to bring myself forward and down. I'm going to press through my hands. I'm going to retract through the shoulders. I'm trying again to lift through my collarbone. So I'm getting a good lift through the upper body. And then I'm going to come forward and coming down and having the hands just underneath the shoulders. I'm going to tuck the toes and lift straight up into plank. I'm going to press through the hands. And then coming down with the knees. And then you can sit back on the feet. So I'm just tucking the toes and sitting back on my feet, just like Noah is. But this is where we're going to get into, I'm going to do some kick-ups, but I'm not going to use the wall. You're welcome to use the wall if you're more comfortable with that, but I'm doing it more in terms of conditioning. So I don't have a yoga block, but if you had a yoga block, you could have it behind your forearm, and that's a very good way of, say you're close to kicking up and you're like, gosh, I want to get up. It's really about getting your shoulders more forward of your hands. So you can be right here. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to bring it down and bring it up. And we're going to do it a number of times. Try to keep more of a hollowed position. And think of this as not so much that you're trying to kick up. I mean, if that's what you're going for, then that's what you're going for. But in terms of just conditioning, just be real playful and going up and down. And maybe you're going kind of low, right? That's a good start. But where my shoulders are over my hands, my wrist, I'm going to make myself nice and strong and hollowed. And then I'm going to take my right leg up and then bringing it down. And taking it up and bringing it down. Down and up. Down and up. One more time. And then back down. Come down into a squat, right, if you can, or any seated position. And the crouch position, which we did earlier, we did one-legged crouches, is that you could do that as well. But I'm going to go and do the opposite side. But again, you're tired. Maybe you're just in down dog. Maybe you're holding plank. Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah. Get your arms on the inside. So I'm going to use my left leg. I'm going to take my left leg up in space. So my hands are turned out again. I'm taking my left leg up. Bringing it down. Taking it up. Bringing it down. And back down. So just in, I would set a count, whatever that count may be. So say 2 is difficult for you. Before you eat, you can do a couple kick-ups, right side, left side, and then you can add a number, add like 1 or 2 like the next week. But be consistent, 2-3 times a week you're working on your handstand. You'll get closer and closer. Like I said, basic drills don't seem like they're getting you that much closer, but it's really kind of, it's the pieces that are missing. You take one person and they're just trying, because I've seen this before, is they don't really get closer. They get stronger, right? But they don't really get the 10-second hold that I'm hoping that people that take this class eventually get. And then 10 seconds could be 15, 20, and so on. But you got to build a good foundation. You have a wrist injury or shoulder injury, right? Be patient with it. But you could work hollow body holds, planks on your forearms. So even if you're injured, you can still work towards getting your handstand. And that's, it might be something that you have to work around. Right, so I'm going to come onto my hands and I'm going to go up into a down dog. So I'm lifting back and up into a down dog. So I'm pulling back. I'm pushing through my hands. I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog. So lifting up, pulling back, coming forward, coming through, and then back into a down dog. I'm going to come forward where I'm bringing my feet forward. I'm going to bring my hands back. And then I'm just going to be purposely rounding my back, right? Rounding my spine, bringing my ribs in, bringing myself all the way up into a standing position. Again, try to get the tailbone down, try to lift the pubic bone up, take the arms overhead, and make yourself a bit hollowed here, right? Come up on the toes, lift the heels. Take 3 deep breaths. And then lower the heels, and you can exhale, you can lower the arms. And what we'll do is I'm going to take my feet out wide. I'm going to work a little bit more on the insides of the thighs, just more like some just basic stretching, just some Cossack stretching. So my feet are out, and I'm just playing around with the weight. I'm just moving the weight around. It can be hard on the feet, so it's great in shoes. So if you ever needed to do it in shoes, you can do it in shoes. I'm going to my left side. I'm purposely having my right foot turned in. So I'm working more on my adductor as opposed to my hamstring. I'm going to take it up and then go to the right. As I go to my right, getting more again into the inner thigh. So I'm, because I am mixing in more squatting into this class, this is something that will help with squatting, help with side splits as well. I'm coming up. I'm going to go to the left side. As I go to the left, I'm not concerned with sitting lower. Certain days I'll sit lower, certain days I won't. It's just a matter of There's so many different variables as far as why you will do that, but you might get to a certain level where you get frustrated and you really push. Right? I would stay away from that. You could use some external weight. When I work with someone that's, if you already have decent amount of flexibility, I don't think you need that, but you could. So if you had a lot of tightness in your hamstrings, your hips, you could certainly do this with I'd start with like a smaller weight, like a 10-pound weight, no more than that. So bring yourself up, go to the left side, keep yourself upright, and push strong through the left foot. Try to get more weight in the leg that's straight, whichever leg that is for you. Mine is the right side, and then I'm getting more into the inside of the thigh, into the hip. You want to get more into the hamstring. This is where it gets kind of hard on the heel. My toes are up, it's more hamstring related. So bring yourself up, push through the left foot, going to the right, sitting into the hips. And again, you could be reaching for the left leg or the foot, and then that just adds more leverage into the inner thigh and into the hip. Like I said, if I want to get more into the hamstring, my toes are pointed to the ceiling, sitting in the position, and I'm pushing my thighs apart, and then I'm bringing myself back up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my feet in a little bit wider than my shoulders, and I'm going to squat down. So maybe you can see a difference in the way that you squat. And closer to getting this position, right, then you can spend more time in it. I'll fold laundry in it, I'll chop vegetables in this position, play with my son on the floor like this. So it becomes more of, you don't have to necessarily do it in practice, you can do it more in life, and you'll benefit from it. So, many positions come from the squat. So come down onto your hands. Actually, we'll do another exercise for handstand in terms of coming up. So the way I'm doing it is kind of spreading it out. So if you didn't have a lot of strength, this is a better approach. As you get stronger, you could really do this practice in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If you want to really get stronger, obviously it could be longer than that. But a spread out practice is probably going to be better if you're not as strong yet on your hands. It's still, again, attainable. So I'm going to come down, and these are wall walks. I use these as a pretty staple of this class. They're hard. There's nothing easy about them. But what you could do is you don't have to walk up all the way. Just walk up some of the way, come back out, pick a number. You could roll a dice. On this day I'm going to do it. You roll a 2, you do it twice. You roll a 6, you're going to try to get to 6. It's something that you could use, My hands are down, my shoulders are rounded, I'm protracting the shoulders. I'm going to walk up the wall. I'm going to try to I'll do 3, but you could certainly do more. But for a beginner, I think that's a good number to start with. So when I'm here, you might have to really get yourself amped up for some of these things. Like, it's not easy to do. So not that you're coming in all angry or anything like that, but you really have to prepare yourself mentally to kind of come up. You're at risk if the elbow's bent, so keep your arms straight. So push through the hands, take one leg up the wall. As you take that leg up the wall, walk back. And again, maybe you're not walking I'm not walking all the way back, but when I'm here, I'm trying to keep my ribs away from the wall. Now I'm going to walk forward, right? Walking forward, and then bringing my feet down. And that's I would say that's more of a slower speed, which is actually more difficult. The faster you go, it's actually easier. So if you can get kind of a rhythm to it, it could certainly be faster. The positive of a faster speed is it builds a little bit more like power or strength, and slow is more controlled, right? We're gonna do a couple more. So take one leg up the wall. So you're really transferring the weight. If all your weight's on one side, you won't be able to pick up that hand. But if I'm on my right hand and all my weight's on my right hand, I can pick up my left hand. And that's how you can walk on your hands. So I'm going to walk back up. So my left leg is up, and then as I'm taking my right leg up, I'm just shifting the weight around to see how I can move my hands back towards the wall. Again, hands are turned out. Then I'm going to walk back forward, right? And then I'm going to come down, but I'm going to go right back up. Push. Push the floor away from you, keep your ribs in, and then come back out, walking back out, and then coming down into a squat again. So you can open and close the hands. And again, if you're really not strong, super basic way to get stronger. Like really a great way. Like I could do straight arm strength every day, like pulling or bent arm strength. For me, that's way more taxing. Certain things I could do every day in terms of bent arm strength, but I don't always do it. But with straight arm, you could certainly do it every day, especially if you have like a yoga background, because you're frequently in plank in like a vinyasa setting. So you're well prepared to, if you wanted to, you could do handstands every day. So I'm going to come back up into a down dog. As I go up into down dog, pedaling the legs out, pulling back through the hips, right? Push. Certain days of practice you can assimilate like, oh, my down dog is again geared towards developing a handstand. So to do that, you're pushing through the hands, you're rotating the shoulders out, really strong here. I'm going to come forward and come through into my up dog. And if your knees are down, it's cobra. Both are great. Go back up into down dog. As you're back, right, come down on the knees. And as you come down on the knees, have the toes tucked. And then with the toes tucked, you're sitting back on the feet. And I say this more in like my basic classes is like a partial range of motion might actually be way better than a full range of motion. So I think that's incredibly important to go by, because if it was just so simple to sit back all the way, everyone would do it. Everyone would be able to sit back like this, but it's going to take time. My hands are beside me on blocks if I needed it. Like if I was here, it's going to be much easier. I'm going to lift my knees off the floor and down. Up and down and up and down and up. So, then again, squatting, all these positions are much more available to you, but it's so good for the feet. If you start to see like your balance is compromised or your skeletal system is compromised in terms of how well your feet move, this is a big reason why I'm doing something like this. But we're gonna try to do a kick up, maybe actually even balancing today. I haven't done that in a while in this class, and it's like I did before as far as kicking up. I think there's a real benefit in finding a rhythm. So go down, kick up, go down, kick up. Once you get your hips over your hands, your shoulders, you'll feel like lighter. And that's the moment that you can try to kick up. This is a common thing too with yoga practitioners, is that they try to kick up and they're in a 90-degree angle. That's much harder to balance in, to be honest. So it's not that you have to bring the leg up really fast, but if you bring it up, fast enough, is that you'll balance faster, right? Like it's much harder to hold a 90-degree angle. Like when you see people and they're pressing and they're in a 90-degree angle, that's so hard to hold. It's like if your legs are up against the wall and you're in a 90-degree angle, it's actually a very hard hold to hold. Like it's much easier to go all the way up. So when we kick up, just have fun with it. Use the wall if you need it. When you get reckless, because this can happen, that's when you can stop, because then you could do it later today, you could do it tonight, get reckless, you could very well hurt yourself, and then, then you're out of practice for possibly weeks or months or longer, right? So when I'm kicking up, I want to look. I don't want to look too far forward. If I'm looking too far forward past the hands, I'm in this arc. I'm in what we call like a banana shape. Where I like to look is the heel of the hand, and then on good days that I have good balance, I'll look. My head's more like as it is now, just I'm upside down, right? More neutral. So again, what's stopping some of you possibly from kicking up is getting your shoulders over your hands. So say you're like kicking up and you're strong, you think you're doing everything right, videotape yourself from the side and you'll see that your shoulders aren't far enough forward. And that's a big reason why you can't kick up. Or you bring them forward, you kick up and you can't balance. It's kind of like a mixture. But just before we come up, because you might be close to balancing, is just bring the weight forward in the front of the hands and then bring it into the heels of the hands. So forward and then bringing it back and then bring forward, bring it to, because when you get into a certain level with your handstand, a practice of moving the weight around makes a difference. That's why I can hold a handstand as long as I can, is that I know I can move the weight around and helps me stay up longer, right? So when you're here, I would start with the leg down and kicking up. So if you are kicking up in the middle of the room or at the wall, have your foot down, but decide which leg is going to come up. So when I'm here, I'm going to bring the weight forward. I'm not in a super long stance. I'm kind of like in a shorter stance. And then I'm gonna take my left leg up. So I'm forward. I'm gonna keep that forward, and then I'm gonna take it up into your handstand. So maybe you're kicking up, maybe you're kicking down. I'm gonna stay up. So I'm pushing through the toes, trying to keep the ribs in. And then, you're probably going to have to kick up and down, right, to get that. But once you get how I know where I am in space, it's, like I said, it's pretty easy. And where I live, it's getting warmer. It's like kind of like not that I'm just a handstander, but like I'll spend a lot of time on handstands in warmer seasons. So where you can do them all the time, you could, because when you get to the certain understanding of how to balance, it's really like riding a bike. It's just available anytime, anywhere, and you just, in my opinion, you feel so incredibly well from it. Like I feel, sometimes I'll just, again, a handstand practice, I feel so much happier and healthier from that. So I'm going to come down on my hands. I'm going to step back into a down dog. So as I'm stepping back, pulling the hips back, and then I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog, and then back up into a down dog, coming forward into an up dog, and back into a down dog. So the overhead positions in a handstand will most certainly help you in wheel. Think of wheel, that's possibly a difficult position for you. More often you're practicing handstands, it'll transfer over into wheel, and wheel will help your handstands as well. If you're really challenged in wheel, the better your wheel is, the better your handstand will be. So I've done it a couple weeks in a row, I think, in terms of bent arm strength. So I said this, or Ben's saying it's going to be a lot more difficult than the handstand, to be honest, but it'll help you learn how to push harder, and that's why I think it's so beneficial to do. So I did some archer push-ups. I've done them in the past. I've done some eccentrics, and I'll do a couple just eccentric just so that you have something. But what you could do is put a bolster underneath your chest, because most likely you might lose the connection and you might crash. So rather than crashing on the floor, put a bolster underneath you so that if you do fall out of it, it's not like you falling on the floor, right? But just so that you can see it better, I'm going to be more on an angle. I'll be this direction. So you can decide which arm. The arm that's straight is the arm that you're going away from. So if my right arm is straight, I'm going to be bending my left arm and going to my left hand. And in any of these more extreme, not that they're extreme, but they're bigger range, it's perfectly fine to turn the hand out more. So I'm going to turn my hand out so that it's less on the wrist. So when I'm here, again, I'm pretty wide in my stance, and then I'm going to go out to my left hand. It's much easier if your feet are wide, right? So take your feet wider, or as wide as your hands. Go to the left, slow, all the way down, and then you're coming up, right? So that's an eccentric, but like if you get to that point, you're like, I'm gonna crash. Just make some pillows, create a higher point, and then as you get stronger, then you can increase the range in coming down, right? Because it can be a bit scary, right? I said this last week, if you've been doing years of sun salutations, these are so good for your shoulders. Being on certain angles will help strengthen the shoulder. I think it's very, very good. So I'm going to go to the left side. So my left arm's, or I'm going to go to my right. So my left arm is straight. I'm going to carry over to the right, push, and then I'm coming down. But before you come up, just push into the floor. Push really, really hard. And that basic pushing or connection is what's lost. And that's why people crash, right? So if you can keep the tension, you won't fall. And you'll be able to push up. And rather than just flailing or really compensating and getting yourself out of position, I think that's where people do... not always, but it's putting yourself at possibly having a repetitive injury because you're always doing it the same way. If that makes sense. Because you're in a class when you're tired or something and you're scrambling, you're just kind of always going to what's gotten you through it, right? But I'm gonna do a couple each side, just maybe so that you can see it and maybe you'd like to do it. Like I said, it's a lot more difficult. It might not look aesthetically what you want it to look like at first, but it's a process. As you're really working on cleaning things up, you'll get them to be cleaner, they'll look better, they'll actually function better. But if you're just trying to get through it for a number, it's where you're not really going to improve as much, right? So I'm going to go to my left side a few times. So my arms are out wide, my hands are turned out. I'm going to go to my left, pushing, and then up, right? I'm going to keep my ribs in, tailbone down, pushing, and up, out to the left, and then up. And it's strength, but it's really coordination, right? Out to the right, then up, out to the right, elbow into the body, and up. One more time, out to the right, and back up. So, and the number is just the number. It doesn't have to be a certain number. As long as it's difficult and as long as it's challenging your physiology, you'll definitely get stronger and you'll be able to do more in practice. So I'm going to turn my hands back just to stretch out the hands. So as I'm turning my hands out, I'm going to move the weight around just to stretch out my wrists. And then I'm going to turn the backs of my hands to the floor. So my right hand is turned back, then my left hand. So it's almost like I'm gripping or holding onto something. And then I'm moving the weight around into the hands, which can be done more like pushing like we just did. But to start, this is probably going to be what it's like for a while. So I'm just going to finish up a little bit on my back just to stretch you out a little bit more. Something that I used, or I think I used it last week, is that a low bridge is something that you can use in terms of, again, learning how to coordinate and push differently. It's quite progressive in the feet and the thighs. That's why I like it so much. And then I'll do a little bit of a plow, which I think is, a great position that, you don't have to use every day. But in terms of flexibility, it's one of the better positions, right? So I'm on my back. I'm going to go back into a bridge, just a classic bridge, a yoga bridge. So my hands are over my elbows. I'm going to lift through the hips, ground down through the shoulders. I'm going to open and close the hands if I need to. And then I'm going to bring my upper back into the floor, my mid back down, my low back down, and my pelvis. I'm going to do this a couple times. So if you're not doing plow, this is the alternative. So I'm lifting, grounding down through the shoulders, and then I'm slowly bringing the upper back into the floor, the mid back, the low back, and the pelvis. Simple, but really great. You could do a supported bridge if you have a block, right? That's a great way. But I'm going to do the bridge first. So I'm going to come where if I'm doing the low bridge, like I'm suggesting, is see how my hips are elevated and then I'm tucking my toes underneath. So I'm here. This is really the position, but it's pretty hard or difficult for people to do. So that's why I do all the toe exercises that I do, so that you can eventually do something like this. But if I'm able, what I'm going to do is have my toes tucked, right? So my toes are tucked like so, but my hands are going to come over my shoulders. And just for preparatory for the wheel, I want my hands to be just under my elbows, not my shoulders. If you have a lot of flexibility in your shoulders and your back, it's okay if they're underneath the shoulders. But for most people, underneath the elbows first is good, right, to start with. So I'm pushing through my fingertips and I'm lifting my hips, so heels up. Then I'm pushing into the floor, and then I'm coming up where I'm bringing my weight forward, right? And it could be I came down, right? You could do that. You could come down and then come up. So if you didn't have the strength, I can only come up for a few seconds. Well, then just come down. And when you're ready, go back up again, right? And then if you can, you're eventually holding for, say, 20, 30, 40 seconds, right? And then coming down with the shoulders, coming down, stretching the legs forward. Super basic, but when you bring your legs, in that position with weight, lots of benefits in the joints and in the tissues of the lower body. A very preparatory thing that you could do for eventually doing, like, again, wheel. But I'm gonna finish up in plow. So when I'm in plow, same thing, is I could have the block underneath me, because that's the hardest part for people, is getting the hips off the floor. But I'm going to take my legs up, taking my legs overhead, and then bringing, and I'm not really concerned if my feet touch the floor or not. But they could be on a piece of furniture, they could be on a wall. There's this, like, you really shouldn't turn the head. I'm turning the head, but you really shouldn't initially. And then, should I be straight on? Initially, yes, right? But you could certainly move the weight around, and there's some really great other ways of doing it that are more, I guess you'd say, more contemporary. But I could bring my knees into my forehead. I could grab my hands, I could grab my mat. I could have my hold of my feet, right? But I'm moving the weight around just a little bit to just my back. And then I'm going to bring my upper back into the floor. Nice and slow. Maybe you're already out. I'm bringing my mid back down, just underneath my shoulder blades. Right. Control, control, control. And then lower back. And it doesn't have to be this slow. Just kind of nice. And then bring the feet down. Have the hands over the elbows. Lift the hips, not into a huge back bend, but just to kind of counter it. just so that you're getting a little bit more lift of the lower back. And then bringing the upper back into the floor, bringing the mid back down, bringing the low back down. And it's, when you have a really strong practice, it's, maybe this is really strong for you, it's nice to relax, but if it's not so strong, I don't think it's like you have to. If you're good, you're good. You got to stay alert for the afternoon. You have a big meeting. I think it's better not to relax and then to relax later in the day, right? But not on your sofa, like having some silence or at least some music, just so that you can relax into a better space. But I'm going to sit up, and then as I sit up, I'm just going to do some slight rotation. So my right hand's at my chest, I'm just turning just a little bit. And I'm going to take my right hand on my left knee, and I'm turning. It's very easy to just turn the head, trying to turn the torso, and just adjusting my back from the previous positions. So I hope that was a great class for you. I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed teaching it. You can always leave me a comment or question, and I'd love to help you more. You could always send me a video too, say you're really struggling with it. It's just a matter of getting someone to help you, and it could be anyone. It's really simple for me to help correct someone when I see it. And that's what I do for people too, is I create practice plans or training plans. So whatever you'd like to develop, we could work together. I'd write something out for you, we'd meet, you'd videotape yourself, and I can review it, and I'd be like, hey, do this, do this, do this. And it's such a fast and easy and healthy way to help someone with their practice. Way better than any other thing that I've ever offered, because you get more time practicing. We do it privately, it's good, but that's just like once or twice a week, right? Everybody needs more practice. So if I wrote something out for you, you could be practicing multiple times a day in a really, really progressive but safe way. All right, you could always email me or something like that. All my information's on my email or on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. Maybe I'll see you over the weekend in a class. Take care of yourself, be safe, enjoy the weather wherever you're at, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Namaste.